I want to ask you a question. Who's coaching you? Who's asking you the tough questions? Who's telling you, man, you're the common denominator to all of your issues and challenges? Who's telling you, man, all day long, you become the magnetic pulse that attracts to you both good and bad? I want to be your life coach. I want to be the one that cheers you on to the finish line. I want to be the one that you ask the tough questions. And it doesn't mean that I have all the answers, but that means that you have a partner, someone who believes in you, not the you see right now, but the you can't imagine, the you that you are to become, the you are destined to be. I always say we both need the positive and the negative. It's not enough to have the knowledge of the matter, but we must have the wisdom as well. For wisdom settles it. And that's what I want to offer you as you join me on the Coach's Corner. I want to offer you the wisdom of the matter. Maybe it might be relationships, talking about our campaigns for more, for life, the dark room of our subconscious, our spiritual journey. Whatever it is, I want to be there to encourage you, to build you, to challenge you, to cheer you on to the finish line. I'm qualified to do this. Why? Because I'm you. Well, welcome to another edition of the Coach's Corner on SIBN Radio, and we appreciate you stopping by. And as we approach the microphone, we admit that we have personal and professional issues, but we like to think that we're bringing to the table the wisdoms of the matter. Oftentimes we may falter, we may fail, but our goal is the same: to earn the right to speak into your life. My name is Marcus Sillett, a.k.a. The Coach, and thank you for listening. I would be remiss also if I did not recognize those that support and listen to our broadcast worldwide on the various platforms where SIBN television and radio airs. Thank you for following us on Twitter and on www.415-96radio. And for those of you that desire to support us, you can now visit, open to the public, www.we-support-Select-USA TV. You can join there free of charge and elect to upgrade your subscription to any one of the levels on the website. That's www.we-support-Select-USA-TV.com. Well, let's get right to work. How are you doing? We trust that you are doing well. Thank you, Mr. DJ. We trust that you are doing well. Trust that everything is going according to plan, that destiny's path is clear or clearer for those of you who are making every attempt to fulfill your destiny. And we have been struggling of sorts with something we're going to talk about today: the experience of growing up black being very painful, very, very painful. I want to first apologize to those who have listened to me for quite some time and have found some of my comments to be offensive. That is not my intention. We definitely have a long way to go as a African American community, and my frustration is somewhat obvious in some of our broadcasts. And so for those of you that are sensitive to various subjects, we do make our apologies public. And then we also say we take responsibility for those comments that we have made. They weren't directed to any one person or one group per se, but they are articulating perhaps a very deep frustration regarding where we are as a people, even though we claim we have come a long way. I look within my own self to try to, find where was this sense of frustration coming from. Thank you, Mr. DJ. He's on it. I was trying to find out where the frustration was coming from, and I realized it was coming from my own pain, conversations that I have never had about being black and growing up, and the racial tensions that I faced in my particular constituency and my community and among my peeps, as the kids say. And so that's what I want to talk about today. Growing up black was painful for a number of reasons. For the coach, I grew up in a very racial tense district there in Cleveland, Ohio. I found myself in elementary school witnessing racial tensions and racial fights often. In elementary school, somehow or another, the tensions would rise so high that after school, the whites would be on one side of the parking lot and the blacks on the other side, and someone would be waiting to start the altercation on a physical level. And so viewing that and seeing that as a elementary student was very, very tense for me, to say the least. No one really explained that. They just told us to behave and go home. And so from that point on, I witnessed white flight in my neighborhood. My father and his brothers owned quite a bit of property on White Avenue. That's an irony there, but they owned quite a bit of property in that area, all on one particular street. And of course, there were whites living there and blacks living there, but the tensions, as I said, often drew very high. And over the years, as blacks began to populate the area more, the racial tensions were more individualized, but still we had a lot of profiling. Of course, we didn't know that was the word back then. We didn't have words like police brutality, which was often the case. Police would catch you. They had what they called truant officers, who would catch you either late to school or not in school for whatever reasons, because remember, we walked to school back in those days. Busing was not in enforcement, and I want to say segregation might not have been in full enforcement, but busing was not allowed. And so I have a lot of memories that I realize now that I had buried regarding my racial integrating experience. And my parents, really just sat us down as kids and said, look, listen, you're black, and you're going to have to work double to have a normal life, in essence. And so this still was not comprehensible until I grew older, because I continued to see the race tensions. I think for me, the race tensions came to a boil in the Addison Junior High School, which is now torn down, but the Addison Junior High School there on the east side of Cleveland, where we had a majority population of African Americans, but we still had a small percentage of whites attending that school, and of course white and black teachers there. And the school was very, very interesting. It was a party school to me. I mean, folks smoking weed in the back of the classroom, and we had co-ed, disco co-ed during lunchtime. It was like a club, really, to be honest about it. While you were trying to get your education, it was just a whole lot of socialization. But racial tensions came to a boil for me because I was accused by a white teacher of attacking him when he asked me to leave the classroom. Someone had done something and he thought I did it. And, he had asked me to leave the classroom, and I told him I hadn't done anything, so I wasn't going to leave the classroom. And back in those days, when you were asked to leave the classroom, that usually meant you were going to get paddled. I know some of y'all realize I'm telling my age now, but that means you were going to get paddled, or you were going to have your parents called immediately. No delay in that phone call. And for me, that would mean trouble because my parents was extremely strict, low to no tolerance of any behavioral problems. Unfortunately, my parents often lashed out and asked questions later. But this particular teacher had accused me of attacking him. And back in those days, learning from my parents, my reactions were not normal. Once I realized that I did not have a way forward of truth, I just became irate at best. I didn't know about peaceful demonstration. In the I don't even think I was in the 9th grade. I was in I think I might have been in the 7th grade or something like that, so maybe 6th or 7th grade. And so the teacher and I got into a scuffle. And like I said, the teacher filed charges against me and said that I hit him and I attacked him. And my anger just could not be calmed. I promise you, I was a raging bull. And the more I became upset about this accusation, the more they pointed to me and said, see, that's the man that attacked me in the classroom. And of course, the more they said, see, that's the one that attacked me in the classroom, the more angry I became. And so the state of Ohio, under Governor James Rhodes, had some kind of a program or 2 or 3 going on in the urban community there in Cleveland. And they often locked up boys between the ages of 9, I want to say about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and maybe even 13, 14, somewhere between 8 and 14. They locked them up for the most minuscule situations. Well, in this case, I was sent away based on this accusation. And I was so angry that for the first 4 months, 6 months of my sentence as a juvenile, I was just absolutely out of control. I felt that my parents did not believe me. I felt that there were no witnesses really, that because they're all blacks was in the class, maybe 1 or 2 whites in the class. And I just was so upset that I just did not have a sense of calm. This was back in the 70s. And as I said, Governor James Rhodes was locking up boys left and right. So quite naturally, when they sent me to the reform school there in Maumee, Ohio, it was filled with African-American youth as well as Caucasian youth, but mostly African-American youth. It might have been half and half. But I remember being there in Maumee, Ohio, and I remember my stay there initially was not good. I just threw temper tantrums. I just didn't talk in group therapy. I just wouldn't communicate. I was angry. And I was angry because I was accused of doing something that I know I did not do. What the teacher had tried to do was physically remove me from the class. And because I would not allow him to put his hands on me, as he continued to try to remove me from the class, he and I end up falling forward or backwards or sideways, and that's how the scuffle began. But I didn't have enough resolve and calm and peace in order to share that. Even though I did share it, I still, once I shared portions of it, and found out that I wasn't believed, it was just too much for me. It was too much. And so that sentence I had was supposed to be 6 months, maybe no longer than 8 months. I stayed there 12 plus 6 months. I stayed there a year and a half because I just could not handle it at all. And I remember my parents coming up to visit me and this, that, and the other. And I just was really, and it wasn't until, to be perfectly honest with you, it wasn't until a young boy named Jarvis, I don't know his last name, in 1976, October of 1976, I was well into my sentence at this reform school. And Jarvis used to tell me how much God loved me. And I heard about the love of God, but I mean, he would always just whisper when I was, angry or whatever. He'd always tell me, God loves me, it's going to be okay. And so, of course, I could sing. So I sang in the little reform school choir there, and Jarvis was in the choir with me. He was a white kid. And when the invitation was given for folks to come up and give their hearts to the Lord, Jarvis, he used to always say, "Do you want to go up? If you want to go up, I'll go with you." We were just kids. I might have been 9 years old. I was 11 going on 12 years old. I remember my age because 1976. So, and I kept saying no, and eventually I went up and I gave my heart to the Lord because Jarvis kept telling me how much God loved me and how much it would be okay. Jarvis was responsible for soothing my wound, and he was responsible for showing love and mercy and kindness. And a lot of other people were trying to get to me, but I'll never forget Jarvis, who always whispered, "Do you want to go up and give your heart to Jesus?" So in 1976, October, that's when I became a born-again Christian. I probably might have been 11 and a half years old, whatever, 12 years old. And attempted from that point on to control my raging attitude because I grew up in a hostile environment, often where I was accused of things. And eventually I just started fulfilling the accusations. If they accused me of stealing and I knew I didn't steal anything, then I just start stealing so that when they would ask me, "Did you do it?" I could say yes, so quite naturally, then I'd have to suffer another consequence for telling the truth. So I suffered consequences for telling the truth, of which they told me was a lie, and then I suffered the consequences of telling the truth after I turned around and did what they said I shouldn't do, so that when they would ask me, "Did I do it?" I could say yes, and of course take whatever punishment came to me. This is very troublesome, very gruesome childhood that I had, but as far as race is concerned, Jarvis was white. He was white, and from that point on, I was just in and out of foster care, in and out of institutional care because I had challenges with my anger. I had a father who was very reactive, though he was intentionally trying to just guide us. He was very, very reactive. And so I grew to be reactive, in every situation. And it wasn't mature. It wasn't always the best. And once I felt that I wasn't believed, I really lost it. And so looking back, I don't think that I still understood race, but I did know that I was accused of something that I never imagined I would spend time as a juvenile for. And this continued, this accusation type situation continued throughout my childhood. I don't know where that was exactly from. Maybe it was some form of bullying or something. I don't know. But looking back on race, I then perhaps grew somewhat paranoid. But I couldn't grow all the way paranoid because, as I said, in '76 I began singing, and I did a state tour. I did a state tour in '76. The Reform School's choir was so good that we went around the state to various churches and sang. And so I was the favorite in that. And that was really how I was able to begin to control and calm and bring myself to a more peaceful resolve regarding unfair situations. And as I returned home, we had institutional racism that persisted, in my view, with various things that went on. But you have to understand, I grew up in the historic Huff District, where the U.S. Marshals came in back in the 60s, instituting martial law and preventing riots, race riots, and all of these kinds of things. So the district that I grew up in had a historical perspective regarding race riots, race tensions, and beyond. And I think that at the time of my birth and growing up and in school, that was I was in the simmering down point of that history. And so we'll talk more about growing up black and the extremely difficult challenges that lied ahead for the coach. This is SIBN Radio's DCC, the Coach's Corner. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. woman is from the inside out and not from the outside in. Don't trick yourself. You will wreck yourself trying to impress others and trying to keep up with the Smiths and the Joneses. It's about time that you start looking at the finish line. And at DCC, we offer the hardest core motivation, daily inspiration for your spiritual foundation that you can find. Why? Because our philosophy is simple. We are the common denominator in every situation.
Yeah, growing up black, it wasn't an easy thing. It wasn't an easy thing at all. It wasn't. I tell you, it's funny. When you look back on, as I said, the tensions between whites and blacks in our community there in Cleveland, Ohio, it's just we've come a long ways, but we've got a long ways to go. I remember Wilson Junior High School there on 55th Street. There in Cleveland. Boy, you talk about a mixed school. It was always a mixed school. And I had another instance there where I was being bullied. And I'm fast forwarding to junior high school because some of the things in between elementary and junior high school were more neighborhood and home based issues. But back to a public issue and growing up black and how painful it was. I went to Wilson Junior High School, and there was a set of folks that was bullying me. Now these weren't black folks, but keep in mind, when you went to Wilson Junior High School, you loved it and you hated it at the same time, because it was a mixed school, and by all means, anything could happen among the races at any time. A race riot could break out at any time, and then a riot could break out just at any time among the African Americans by themselves or the whites by themselves. And so I was being bullied by this particular kid. And I went to the administrators because I had learned peaceful resolve. And I spoke and I told them about this young man. And then they said that they investigated, but nothing became of him. And of course, by the time he, got to me and told me that he knew that I had went and told the administrators of his behaviors toward me, it escalated to the point that he told me he was going to shoot me, and brashed a gun in class that he had, that he said, "You're going to die. You're going to die." He brashed his gun in class. And so I remember telling the administrators once again that he showed students a gun, and that he said that when he got a chance that I was going to be finished. I was going to be dead. And so I had went to my girlfriend's house, I believe it was, and had found some kind of knife. I don't know what kind of knife. It wasn't like a kitchen knife. It was some kind of bow knife or something. And I had stuck it in my bag because I was so scared. And my parents weren't the type of parents you could tell them something, they'd believe you. They always believed the other persons over their kids. And that became an issue even into my young adult life, because, the whole purpose of being a child is to be protected and to be provided for. And that provision does not erase the protection, and the protection does not erase the provision. They both go hand in hand. And so I remember telling my parents about it. Of course, my parents reiterated that I should tell the administration about it. And I remember telling the administration about it, and they said, well, there's nothing that we can do because we don't see a gun. We checked his bag, da-da-da-da. And so I was at a bus stop. I think I was waiting to go to work or something. And the gentleman hit me with some brass knuckles into the bus there, the Regional Transit Authority bus stop where I was standing, and I was knocked into the bus. And so I went back to the school administrators that following day, whatever it was, and I told them about that. And so finally, I took the knife in my bag to school. And I don't know how, I might have told somebody I thought I had confidence in, but that confidence was betrayed. and they told the administrators I had a knife, and so I didn't have enough sense to hide the knife. So they checked my bag for the knife, and thus I was expelled from Wilson Junior High School. So my growing up, as an African American, I didn't know about nothing about the thug life, but we were labeled as thugs. I didn't know anything about the criminal life, but we were labeled as criminal. And I'm telling you, I had great teachers. I had great experiences, but it was just so tense. At any moment, things could break out, and at various moments, things did break out. Race riots in the parking lot at Central Junior High School, I believe it was. Race riots breaking out at Wilson Junior High School. Tensions between the races in the streets was a constant situation growing up. And it wasn't until my parents finally moved to the Wade Park area that some of that subsided because we were further away from the Huff district, which had a historical context for racial tensions and violence. And so, hey, my time is almost gone, but I just wanted to give you guys a few capsules, a window into, growing up black, being very painful. Being told that that we are labeled as thieves and robbers, and this is at 7, 8 years old. My father told me, so I don't ever want to catch you doing this, and I don't ever want to catch you doing that. And yet caught in the thicket of a governor who had programs instituted to pick up black boys off the street between the ages of 8 and 14. And so, I have other experiences that I could talk about. Maybe we'll make this part one. Appreciate you guys listening. This is the Coach's Corner. That's about my time. Once again, follow us on Twitter at SelectUSA and also on Facebook, facebook.com/SelectUSA. And whatever you do, keep it locked right here on SIBN Radio. DCC in the house, the coach.
Listen to the sound of the Coach's Corner.
Ready, set, go.
That's right, DCC. Are you ready for the hardcore motivation, daily inspiration, and sure up your spiritual foundation on DCC? If you want more on the go and you need to know, www.415-96radio.com. Join us there as we cheer you on to the finish line of life. This is not your mama's show. This show is for the new generation of those young men and women who know and realize that I've done enough foolish things, I've made enough mistakes, and now it is my time to accept the philosophy of DCC. And that is, I am the common denominator to every situation. Join me at www.415-96radio.com. That's www.415-96radio.com. And follow me on Twitter. You're listening to the sound of the Coach's Corner. I's got my eyes on you, and I see you done sat down on the future. I need you to get up, stop looking back, and move forward. What you need, 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 what you need.